Hey, boy. Hey, it's me, Chad, the host of News Time. Obviously, this year was one for the books, and not the good books, the bad books, not the Bible, the sinful books like Catcher in the Rye that caused people to go kill other people. That happened, right? Listen, I thought, why not end this year of News Time, because that's what this year was, News Time, with an episode that has not ever been done before. Nothing's been written. Not much has been prepared. So pretty much every other episode of News Time. Right? Anyways, okay. This part's the cold open. Next you'll see the theme song. And then after that, the episode. And after that, the year will end. And maybe our lives? Okay. I'm going to say something I haven't said in a long time. This is News Time.
It's News Time. Delivering to you the news you didn't know about, the news you didn't care about, and the news you didn't know you cared about. With host, Chad White. Now, here's that host, Chad White.
Welcome back to News Time. I'm your host, Chad White, and this is the last News Time of the year. Yeah, there you go. I wasn't lying before in the cold open when I said nothing's been scripted. Everything that I'm saying right now is coming out of my mouth, word for word, rhyme for rhyme, dollar for dollar. Oh, I think it's time to start rapping. No, listen, usually this point of the year, final episode of News Time of the year, I talk about the best things that happen in the world of comedy, all right, or in the world of television and movies. The best shows, the best movies, podcasts, stand-up. That's about it. Those are the four categories. Now, instead of having some gimmick where I pull names out of a hat or where I just choose my favorite 5 things, no. I'm going to choose the things that I could remember off the top of my head, which is not a joke. I just hit my step count. No big deal. Which is not a joke. Things that I can remember at the top of my head. Some things I had to Google. We're just going to have a nice, chill conversation about it, all right? And by we, I mean me. That's the royal we, right? Call the queen. So, here we go. Oh, you know what's really funny? I wrote a welcome back to News Time joke here, where after I say, I'm your host, Chad White, and this is and then I wrote, comedy sure was different this year, suggestions you didn't know about. So, whatever. Anyway, the shows I want to talk about are very different from what has come before it, such as the Amber Ruffin Show. Amber Ruffin entered the late night arena with her own show, except it's on Peacock, and they seem to have some type of love about it because they're bringing it back for a second season. NBC is, and it's a great, wonderful show. Her and Tarek Davis. It's written by Demi Dijuibe and about 2 other people, including 3 other people, including Jenny Haskell, who is, I think, executive producing it, and both Jenny and Amber are still able to work on Late Night with Seth Meyers, so that's wonderful. Check out the Amber Ruffin Show. Then Saved by the Bell came back. Tracy Wigfield brought it back, and it is very much in the same vein as 30 Rock. Very funny, very fast-paced jokes, but it's also very thoughtful, and it makes Saved by the Bell palatable for today's TV watching diet. Then, of course, we've got Moonbase 8, Woke. Both of those shows did phenomenally on Showtime as well as Hulu, respectively. And Woke spoke to the moment, very much so. And then the Owl House over there on Disney Channel, another one of their shows that they just basically have these long-form stories. Very funny, very true to form. Duncanville, a very funny cartoon show over there on Fox. Great lineup over there now. They have Hintified and Star Trek Lower Decks, both wonderful on Netflix. Hintified is a Spanish language show, very good, very thoughtful, very funny, and very thought-provoking as well. And Star Trek Lower Decks is just cartoon Star Trek. For movies, of course, we've got The Lovebirds, which was, I believe, one of the first comedies, this and King of Staten Island, to come out either digitally, where you rent at home, PVOD, in the case of King of Staten Island, and then The Lovebirds, which was sold from Paramount to Netflix. I think both were great. Did not see King of Staten Island until last week, and guess what? It's coming to HBO Max next week. So guess who spent money that he didn't have to? But truly great show. Not a lot of people of color in King of Staten Island, just very apropos of Apatow. Palm Springs, very great time-bending Groundhog Day film with Andy Samberg and Kristen Milotti, both funny actors. J.K. Simmons as well. Such a good show. Good movie, excuse me. Bill and Ted Face the Music. It brought back Bill and Ted, 20 years later, and they were still funny. And it, again, played in the moment. Sonic the Hedgehog and Trolls World Tour, even though they were kids' movies, I really, really, really enjoyed both of those movies. I think Sonic actually might have been the first movie to come out PVOD. Because it was only in theaters for a little bit, if it was in theaters. Both great kids' movies. I wish they dug into the world of Sonic the Hedgehog more instead of having Tails at the very end. So, spoiler if you haven't seen that movie. Speaking of kids' movies, Over the Moon over on Netflix. Great Asian American film. So good, so wonderfully animated. Reminds me a lot of Abominable that came out last year around this time. Again, another Asian language film, but now it's in English, I believe, dubbed. But both great movies. Of course, there's The Willoughbys over on Netflix. It's great animation, great story, and it's a very, very, very funny movie. Probably the funniest kids movie that came out this year. Will Forte's in it. Maya Rudolph's in it. Wonderful. Hubie Halloween on the rocks. Hubie Halloween, Adam Sandler's next Netflix movie. Great Halloween movie. I think it's very funny, not very scary. And then On the Rocks, Bill Murray, Rashida Jones, and Marlon Wayans in Sofia Coppola's Apple TV Plus masterpiece. And then Borat's subsequent movie film, which is Return to Borat. And it was great. And the young woman, Morena Baccarina. Hey, Baccarina. I'm sorry. She did a great job, too. And then, of course, we have big moves in the podcasting world. Scripps sold Earwolf to SiriusXM. And truly, just yesterday, Amazon bought Wondery. And then Spotify upped its game by acquiring Gimlet. I don't know if that was last year or this year, as well as Joe Rogan. And but nobody, they're not really understanding. They're not getting what it means to have these podcasting companies, because podcasting used to be this niche thing, and now it's this huge, giant organization medium where the super famous are making these shows and getting rich, and the people who pioneered it aren't. And no one seems to get that except for the people who pioneered it and their fans. It's not. There's 850,000 podcasts at the end of 2020 here, and probably, I'm throwing out a percentage, 1% of them are doing any type of good by making money. By that I mean making money, and it sucks to see that. And truly, I mean, everyone thinks it's so easy, and I was on a Patreon yesterday of what I'm thinking is a pretty racist podcast, and they're making $40,000 a month. I mean, those are insane numbers. $40,000 and 4,800 people are giving to them, and they're two comedians who are two white male comedians who I clicked through a couple of the podcasts and said everybody's getting canceled now, and I went, no way. How is it that they have that kind of following, but it takes others are struggling to even get a click on their Patreon. So it sucks to see that only these monster companies are buying up these smaller independent. Wondery was one of the last independent podcast production companies, and yeah, I mean they have these Wondery and Gimlet and Earwolf. They have these great podcasts, but it stinks because they didn't know how to make it as big as it is now. So it's kind of like a catch-22. One hand, you want to be able to own your shows, but on the other hand, you really can't. And that's another thing. Podcast hosts don't own their shows. But now they're really trying to get that because you can monetize it. Then, of course, Hollywood Handbook, Yo, Is This Racist? They jumped off of Earwolf. Then you have podcasts leaving and starting their own Patreons and starting their own, in the case of Big Grande, who are just taking their shows into their own hands and making their own things and selling bundles in lieu of selling, subscriptions. You can just buy 20 or 40 podcasts for $30, podcast episodes for $30. So interesting. And then stand-up, obviously there was a slowdown. Obviously you couldn't tour. People were freaking out. I believe it was Sebastian Maniscalco who started doing online shows because he was going crazy. And this was back in April. So he would shoot something on his phone and doing stand-up in his home and then upload it. And now everybody's doing that. Everybody's doing a show on Zoom, or they're doing, stuff on TikTok. Sarah Cooper thinks she's a comedian. She's not. And now everybody's able to do it. Whether they had their shows ready to go or not, they made something in the middle of the pandemic, like how Taylor Swift made albums in the middle of the pandemic. Then maybe stand-up could prevail, and it did. Hannibal Buress released Miami Nights, which was a really highly produced show that I think was shot earlier this year, but it's definitely my favorite of the year. Maria Bamford released Weakness is the Brand. I interviewed her earlier this year, so go read that. Natalie Palamides, who you might know from the Progressive commercials. She plays one of Flo's coworkers. She did a one-man show in drag as a man named Nate, who was this very just dirty, grungy guy. Very funny show. Sam J, Fortune Finister, Felipe Esparza, Jimmy O Yang, and Veer Das all also had their own specials come out this year. I did not watch all of them because I don't watch a lot of stand-up, but the ones I did enjoy were just out of this world. I can't believe, it's a world. I would complain usually about there being a gluttony of stand-up. I was going to say podcast, but also a gluttony of podcasts, but a gluttony of stand-up. When there used to be, it used to be just Comedy Central and HBO, and sometimes once every couple of years Showtime releasing stand-ups, and then specials, and then Netflix started doing one a week, and then now there's one every 2 days. But now when these people can come out, these comedians can come out and create what they want, and then release it themselves, either putting on Netflix or Amazon or wherever they're going to put it. But it's also really good, or they're a voice we haven't heard before, like Sam J, like Jimmy O Yang, like Veer Das. It's wonderful. It's astounding. And then when they're just great comedians like Maria or Hannibal, and they're just being themselves and putting out their umpteenth one, then yeah. So there you have it. 2020 was really good for comedy and TV shows and movies and video games, except for Cyberpunk 2077, and even podcasts. Even podcasts got better, but we just have to keep in mind that we're all trapped inside, watching and listening and reading in the case of books and articles and things. But you know what? Go out there, go watch some stuff, enjoy it. Enjoy it while it's here. I'm glad we got to do it, and it's only going to make us stronger. I hate to be one of those people. But listen, if you like what you heard here, and God, I hope you did, head on over you can subscribe and check out one of our other videos. Of course, you can go to the website, cpluscomedy.com, which I was throwing to earlier, where you can see interviews with your favorite comedians, Maria Bamford, Chris Gethard, Larry the Cable Guy, Jermaine Fowler, Ron Funches, just everybody. Everybody's there, and I did them. I talked to them. Greg Ferguson. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at @CPlusComedy. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Chad Black White. Like us on Facebook. Listen to the Constitutionals podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I got nothing. Enjoy.